All right, what's up today, Blue?
Well, we've actually been meaning to film this video for over 6 months. But it seems like every time we go to film it, something comes up. So yeah, today's the day we're finally filming a boat tour of Lintika. Lintika is a 1980 Passport 42. I think she's hull number 4. Yeah. So what, was there 50 Passport 42s made? Yeah, so they're all similar, but on the interior, they're all a little bit different.
Yeah, so this Passport was designed by Stan Huntingford, and I think there were other Passports designed by a lot of other naval architects, but this is very similar to, if people have seen the Slocum 43, he also designed that. So if you see like the interior of that, it's pretty much identical to this boat. And they're all built in Taiwan in the 80s. So like they use really high quality solid wood for the interiors, and they didn't really understand how strong fiberglass was back then. So I'll show you a core sample later, but the hull of Lintika is like this thick, and then the decks are like this thick. And it's just incredible how strong and heavy she is for a 42-foot boat. Although
she is a 1980 and older than both of us.
Put together?
No. She has had a lot of love put into her. So the previous owner, Justin, you guys may have seen the video that we made about how we actually bought this boat with Bitcoin. And he had the boat for, I want to say 13 years. And he put a lot of time and love and money into this boat. And then also, since we've owned the boat, we've basically taken her from more of like a classy bay cruiser to like a blue water cruising boat. And we love the Passports. So we got really lucky, and yeah, excited to share why we like her.
Cool, we'll start at the deck and go straight to the bow.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool, so Lintika's sail configuration is a cutter rigged sloop. So one mast, but has an inner stay that connects down here. Right now it's off because when we have our Genoa out, it's really hard to tack the Genoa or jibe the Genoa when you have an inner stay here. It has to go through this really small area. So we usually take it out unless we're really beating upwind into strong winds. And it also makes lots of room up on the deck. On the inner stay, we can attach our staysail. So it's a really small hank-on jib type sail that we can point really high up into the wind in strong conditions instead of reefing the Genoa and getting not so good of a shape out of it. This retractable bowsprit, I guess, it has a line here that goes through the whole pole and then makes its way to the tack of the spinnaker. And the cool thing is it's retractable, so you can actually lift it, move it all the way in, reattach it there, and then when we're using it, we put it back out and it attaches again. The first thing you'll probably notice is that there are no teak decks anywhere on Lintika except in the cockpit. Justin removed like, I don't know, 10,000 screws or something crazy, had everything re-gel coated, and then had the non-skid put on top. So huge project. The boat was out of the water for, I don't know how long, like six months, 7 months. They re-faired the hull, they did the deck, they repainted everything.
Before we continue with the rest of the tour, we want to take a minute to share a message from our sponsor.
I've shared this on social media multiple times, but for those of you that don't know this about me, I've struggled with anxiety and depression over the years. That's why I'm really excited today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp. I think it's really important to be honest about mental health. Everyone at some point in their life will struggle with depression. Whether it's a day or a year, it's a human experience we can all relate to. Something that's helped me a lot over the years when I really needed it was therapy. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more accessible and more affordable. This is especially important if you don't have something close by in your area or if you're constantly sailing in remote locations. Getting started with BetterHelp is really easy. It's remote, it's online, and after answering a few questions, you'll be matched with a professional therapist within a couple of days. And if you don't click with the therapist that you're matched with, you can easily change until you find the right fit at no additional cost. Clicking the link in this description not only helps this channel and gets you 10% off your first month, but it's the biggest step in helping yourself. By speaking out about mental health, we can begin to normalize and destigmatize it. I've personally seen this happen over the years. So if you're struggling or you just need someone to talk to, consider giving online therapy with BetterHelp a chance. To learn more, click the link in our description or go to betterhelp.com/Cruisers Academy. And thanks again to BetterHelp for supporting this video. This is our spinnaker pole, or some people call it a whisker pole. It's really cool because it can go out on either side and it just comes down a track on the front of the mast. super lightweight for being 20 feet and like this big around. The pole is controlled by one continuous line with a pair of these spin locks. So once you open these spin locks up, then you can either pull the pole one way or the other way, and it'll actually lift it on the track. And once you have it where you want it, then you can lock these back in. So a pretty cool design with just one continuous line. It's really versatile with our sail configuration. Just the other day we had the Genoa pulled out on one side and then we had the Spinnaker flying on the other side. So it was like this two massive sails out in front of us. It was really cool to be able to do dead downwind sailing with that configuration. Most traditional sailboats have the winch at the mast that controls the halyards for hoisting your main, but Justin went through a lot of effort to make sure you could control everything from the cockpit. So all the halyards and lines that are going up the mast, including the reefing lines, the halyards for the spinnaker, for the jib, all go through a series of blocks back to the cockpit. So one of the biggest improvements that we made specifically in Lintika to make her cruise ready is to rebuild the Dodger. The original Dodger on board was about this tall. So it was good for looking over when you were at the helm, but it didn't really provide much protection. So the guys at Compass Canvas in the Bay Area rebuilt this whole Dodger for us. And they put these windows on that are kind of semi-solid instead of like normal thin roll-up isinglass. Really beautiful, really sturdy build. Very happy with it. So this is a talk amongst a lot of sailors now, and especially people that are cruising full-time. Starlink is such a game changer. We've had it on board since San Francisco and have like had incredible coverage the whole way down, and now that we're in Mexico. So yeah, like it or hate it, it does enable people like us to stay out longer and to be away from cities longer because we do need internet to work. So the fact that we can do this from anywhere is incredible. You just have to know where the off switch is and not get lost in the internet sometimes, but it is a game changer. A lot more young people are able to cruise and work remotely because of Starlink. All right, welcome to the cockpit. You want to show all the clutches and how everything's ran in here?
Sure.
All right.
So like Brady said, all of the running rigging has been rerouted and it comes all back here to the cockpit, which is a great safety feature for a sailboat. We don't actually have to go forward to do anything, especially now that we have the stack pack. We could even drop the sail and it would just catch it for us, so that's pretty awesome. And just between these two winches and all of these clutches, we can actually control 16 lines. It's a really good system. It's efficient. You kind of have to get used to where everything is, but it works really well. And then there's all this canvas, these canvas bags here that just help store lines, and it's not too hard to keep things sort of clean up here.
She's really enjoying the tour, Blue.
Mm-hmm. Very interested in what we have to say.
So another huge improvement that we made to Lintika before sailing south was putting this arch on. It was really hard to find an arch that would fit with the canoe stern, but Tower in a Box came through, and this one actually fits really well. And the guys from To the Horizon, they installed it for us. So Jack and Sonia had put a few on a few other Passport 42s, and they did a great job. So we just had them do the same thing they did with their boat. And on top, we're able to put two SunPower solar panels. Each one is 410 watts. So we have 820 up there. And then on the Dodger, we also have another close to 200. So altogether, just about 1,000 watts of solar, which is really good for us. And we have our dinghy davit system that's on the arch too. So before we hoist the dinghy out on the davit system, we put the outboard here. It's just a little bit heavy with our big dinghy and the outboard to be hanging there with rough weather and stuff. So we put the outboard here on the rail and it locks onto there really, really nice. And then the dinghy can be hoisted really high back there on the arch. Talk about some safety stuff on the stern.
Mm-hmm.
So starting over here, we have our life raft. So it's a 6-man life raft, offshore life raft. We just got that recertified when we were in the bay. This is cool because the placement of it, instead of having it under the boom, sometimes people put them in their cockpit lockers. This is in such a place that we don't have to touch anything. If Lintika were to sink, there's a hydrostatic release right here. It would cut the line, the life raft would fall into the water, and it would be attached by this line. So it would inflate and it would stay attached to the boat until we got into it and cut the line if we needed to. So really good safe placement for a life raft. We have our EPIRB right next to that. So this would send off a signal if we were to activate it, triangulates our position, and then gives our position to cargo ships or whoever's nearby to come and help us. This Mom 8S. It's a man overboard module. So these are pretty cool. They're like kind of like a one-man temporary life raft. If somebody were to fall in the middle of the night, I'd definitely deploy that. You can pull this cord. It inflates itself. The person can climb into it. It has a really tall tower with a strobe on top that you can see. And the person can, it makes it easier for you to find the person and gives the person something secure to swim to.
So yeah, a lot of people ask us what our least favorite thing is about the Passport, and I think that Brady and I agree on this, is that the Passport cockpit is quite small. But my favorite thing about the Passport is how big it feels inside, especially for a boat from the 80s that's, in the 40-foot range. To me, it feels like twice as big as any other boat that I go to with those in that same category. So, shall we? So we're just gonna show the cabin layout really quick. So forward, we have the V-berth, and I actually really like this cabin up here. It's super cozy. You can fit super comfortably. You can fit one person. You can also sleep two up here. If you're crazy like me and Brady, you can fit two people and an 80-pound pit bull. Do not recommend. There's 1, 2, 3, there's 6 storage compartments. There's all these drawers right here, and then you also have a little closet right here, and a hatch and a porthole. So really, really comfy. And then we have a bunch of storage underneath the bed. So we have our spinnaker under here. We actually have our Mantis dive compressor under here as well. And then there's more storage under here. So great cabin for 1 to 2 people if you like snuggling or you're small. So this is the sea berth here. So this is a berth for 1. This is probably the most comfortable berth on the boat because you're really tucked in. It's closest to midship and you're closest to the cockpit. This is the master cabin on this boat. Pretty comfy for 2 people. Get up in here. And what else can I say? This is kind of weird. I wish there was like more enclosed cabins for storage because there's not a lot of storage in this room.
Probably the most important part of being off-grid on a sailboat is the battery system. So underneath the floors in the master cabin is our starter battery. So that's just a normal lead acid battery. And then right here next to each other, we have 2 Battleborn batteries. Each one of these is 270 amp hours. So we'll open up some more floorboards. Down here is the heart of the boat.
Hot.
Our engine compartment. Again, something very special about a 42-foot boat is having access to an engine like this. So this Yanmar is 54 horsepower, diesel engine. When we first bought Lintika, it had about 50 hours on it. Now it has close to 500, so we've put 450 hours on it since we've owned Lintika. But like I said, the access to this engine is incredible. It has a high output alternator on it, so that alternator can put out, I've seen it 140, 150 amps at 12 volt.
Because we don't have a generator.
Because we don't have a generator, we don't need a generator because of all the solar plus that high output alternator. We can charge everything super fast.
And lithium batteries is the other part of that equation, right?
And lithium batteries is part of that equation too, yes. So when we first got Lintika, there was nothing here. This and this weren't here. You can see some holes in the floor that it had originally I think it had a straight center thing that came out, and then there was some leaves that opened up that was part of the table, but it kind of closed off this whole area. So we designed and came up with this table system. Underneath is tons of storage.
And drum roll,
so
please.
This comes down, we unscrew it. I love the idea that we can put the table in and out as we see fit.
There's so much space without it for chilling.
Come down. I think it's pretty unique because you hardly ever see a fold-down table on a sailboat of this size. Like it's common on Catalinas and smaller sailboats, but on a bigger boat like this, it's not as common. So I'm very, very happy with how it turned out. And originally it was going to be jars for like couscous and rice and beans. And we're like, no. Then it turned into a rum bar, tiki bar basically. And then we're like, no. Now it's turned into the cantina.
Yeah.
So we specialize in tequilas and mezcals, although there's a lot of random stuff up there.
Well, I think we've...
Tequila mezcal.
We drank them all, so now it's all the random stuff.
Yeah.
But
so when we were thinking about the installation of the water maker for Lintika, we wanted high output, low power draw. which is kind of what everybody wants, right? You don't want to use a lot of power and you want to make a lot of water. So for Lintika, we decided on a 12-volt water maker. It's called the Schenker Zen 100. So it makes 100 liters an hour, so about 20 gallons or so an hour. And it runs off of 12 volts. So you can run it straight off the batteries, which means you don't have to have a generator to run it. A lot of them run off of like super high pressure pumps that need a lot of power to run. But this one is pretty good because it can just run off the batteries alone. And when our solar is really kicking ass and putting a lot of power in, it can almost match what the water maker's pulling.
Wow.
Like at noon, maybe we're pulling like 10 amps at 12 volt, which is great.
Wow.
Super good.
Cool.
So we're able to literally make water from sunshine.
That's wild.
Yeah. So behind this is where we put it in because it's a pretty big unit. So I had to cut this whole section of the settee out in order to put the water maker back here. You can see it here. It's bolted down back in there, but it's pretty much that big. Moving on from that section, you can see that all the cushions have been reupholstered, which we're very grateful for.
Thank goodness.
And he used a very nice dark color. Which,
right? Why are most cushions light in boats?
I
Like
don't
some
know.
of them are white. Oh, that's a missing button. Don't show that.
White cushions on a boat blew my mind. I
Don't make no sense.
They don't make any sense. Let's move on back to the next section. All right, so starting in the top left corner here, we have the controls for the combi hydronic heating system. So the way that this works is in one of the back lockers, there's a box about this big that has a diesel heater in it. So it actually has a diesel fire that heats the water and circulates it throughout the whole boat through these red pipes. So it's not only used to heat the boat because those red pipes go to little vents that have a heat exchanger and a fan, and then it blows air over the hot coils, and then hot air comes out.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how the boat is heated, but also it's connected into the main water for the boat, so that's where we get our hot water for showers and stuff, and it's pretty instant.
What is behind you? Behind you.
So this is the marine distress call. This is some of our safety stuff. So we have this here for two reasons. If there was an emergency, we'd obviously go through this, but we also use it as a teaching tool when there's not an emergency for our crew that join us to learn what to do during a marine distress situation. So whether it's a pan or a mayday, this will talk you through what to do in those situations. If the situation gets really bad, the next thing on here is the ditch list.
Okay, so we have this same thing that's up in the cockpit. We also have it down here, yeah?
Yeah, so this is the exact same thing that's in the cockpit, just but they're independent units. So whatever I change on this doesn't change up there. What I really like about Garmin is everything is all working together. So the stereo is actually connected into this too, which is cool to control music from these chart plotters. I have satellite imagery on here. So if you zoom in, you can see the topography of the land, although it's pretty pixelated right now. I don't think it's a very good covered area, but at least you can see what's happening. What's also cool about the Garmin systems is it integrates with any sensors you have on board. So we have our freshwater tank, 52%, fuel tank, 69%, wastewater, and water temperature.
So yeah, one thing as far as the Galley goes that's a little different than most boats is we had the big hangy basket, and you know, it would just always break and food would crush itself, and we didn't like it. So we decided to try these out, and then we have the baskets sort of in the storage area, and it's working really well. The food doesn't crush itself, they don't break, we love. This sink here was a big upgrade that we did to Lintika for us. When we first got the boat, there was 2 round sinks here. A lot of people will do that so that you can have a saltwater rinse and then a freshwater rinse. But because we have the water maker and big water tanks, we didn't really need that. Having the big sink makes everything so much easier. And then we have freezer here, or excuse me, fridge is here. So the fridge goes from here all the way down to here. So it's like a pretty massive fridge, right? Over here is a freezer of the same size. So massive freezer. And yeah, we've never even come close to filling these up. Even, you know, when we were sailing down Baja, 16-day passage with 5 people, we still had more than enough room for storage. So the only thing that I don't like about the top loading fridge and freezer was that it felt like you lost counter space. So a friend of ours back in San Francisco started making cutting boards as a hobby. and he made us this really beautiful cutting board with all these different types of woods. So if you're in the galley, you can use this, put your stuff here, slide this back and forth, and still access both the fridge and the freezer. Okay, tell me about your Dinghy.
This is by far one of the best additions to a cruising boat that people could think of. A lot of people go cruising, and I'm not saying anything bad about these people, but a lot of people go cruising and they just have small rowboats or a boat with like a 2 horsepower engine or something. And I get it, it's simplifying life and you don't need to go fast, but there's something very special about having a four-wheel drive at the sea.
Yeah.
We can put a lot of people in this dinghy. We can plane when we need to for safety. We can load up with dive gear, with snorkel gear, with all kinds of stuff. So for a 42-foot sailboat, this is about as big of a dinghy as you can possibly get.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's the 3.4 meter high field. And they've come so far with designing dinghies in the past 10 years. This one I really love because it has the fuel tank up forward.
Mm-hmm.
So underneath here, it's not only a step, but it's also where the fuel is stored. So it does 2 things. It gets it out of the way, but it also puts weight up forward to allow you to plane better.
So when we got Lintika, and we had been so used to having Maggie on Delos, which was a full aluminum tender, super beefy, you could put, as many people in it as you wanted to, as many dive tanks, anything like that, and always feel really safe. I was really worried or skeptical that we could find a semi-inflatable dinghy that was to that same standard. And this dinghy has actually done that. So it's super durable. I love the aluminum bottom. We've pulled it up on so many really rocky beaches, and yeah, it's just holding up incredibly well. So my doubts were not needed. It's shark proof.
Beautiful.
Shark proof. Hope you enjoyed that tour of Lintika. If you like what you see and you want to join us for a cruising course this season, we still have a few spots available in upcoming courses, including some offshore passages from Baja to mainland Mexico, as well as some island hopping trips out of La Paz. You can find all the details for these trips on our website. Even if you're not interested in taking a cruising course, but you're liking our videos, please take a minute to subscribe and leave us a little comment below. Thanks so much, and see you next time.